Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The book I've chosen for this series is Al-Isti'adha. Book is titled like Seeking Allah's Protection from Shaitan. The reason or the primary focus of this book revolves around seeking protection from Shaitan. Allah in Quran Pak in Surah Fatir has said, "Surely Shaitan is an enemy for you, so take him as an enemy." It's often said that you can defend yourself only when you know your enemy better than he knows you. So this book helps you dive into the various aspects of this accursed shaitan and dissects his personality and helps us learn how we can protect ourselves. Before getting into the book, wanted to take an opportunity to introduce the author. Sayyid Dastaghaib Shirazi is by no means a stranger to the world of Islamic and Shiite literature. One of the greatest scholars of his time, he's also known as Shahid al-Mihrab. Sayyid was born in Shiraz in a highly religious and a scholarly family known for its intellectual heritage going back to 800 years. He was from the lineage of Hussaini Sadat. After obtaining his elementary education in his hometown, he moved towards Najaf al-Ashraf in pursuit of higher knowledge. He devoted his entire life in uplifting the Ummah and fighting the tyrants of the time while sharing his knowledge through innumerable books. I just highlight some of his books here, like Greater Sins, also known as Gunahan-e-Kabira, Qalb Salim, The Immaculate Conscience, Heart of the Quran, Ma'ad, Barzakh. These are just some of his famous books, but the book that I've chosen is Al-Isti'adha. Shahid Sayyid was martyred on his way to Juma Namaz by the tyrants of his time. He's also famously known as Shahid al-Mihrab. कहते हैं कि शहीद की मौत मरने के लिए शहीद जैसी जिंदगी भी जीनी चाहिए. And Sayyid was a true epitome of steadfastness, where throughout his life he practiced what he preached. And in this book he talks about our fight against shaitan, the fight against our nafs, the nafs al-ammara. So let's start with how one can get protection from shaitan. It's only and only Allah Almighty that can provide us the absolute protection from shaitan. Like, it can come only from a force that is all pervading. And what better way than to seek Allah's protection through dua? And this is what leads to the title of the book, Al-Isti'adha, which is a dua that mankind makes to Allah to seek protection from shaitan. Al-Isti'adha means A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. Although this is a common verse that we recite very often, but true isti'adha is not just saying the words, but it's the true sense comes from understanding. It's true from the depth of one's heart. Like, the book revolves around this line. This entire book actually revolves around one line, that is A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Now, as I said earlier, like, Isti'adha is a very common verse. We recite very often without paying too much attention. Like, in fact, Sayyid says, seeking protection from shaitan is in fact a topic that has received maximum attention in Quran and also in the traditions of Holy Prophet, in the traditions of the events of early prophets, and also our Aimma. Have you ever wondered that we actually start everything with Isti'adha? And only then we say Bismillah, because we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and then we start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So this is actually one of the most important zikr, that we have to say this even before we say Bismillah, right? This is very similar to our kalima tawheed, where we say La ilaha illallah. We start with denial of other gods before testifying the oneness of Allah. Similarly, it's highly recommended to say Isti'adha or A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, because why is the denial or seeking protection of shaitan important than anything? Why do we have to do this? Why are we seeking protection from shaitan even before doing good things like, before commencing our prayers, before starting any mustahab amal or any permissible act? We are advised to say isti'adha even before saying bismillah. That's because like Iblis makes his utmost efforts to destroy the good deeds of human being, and he's waiting to put that waswasa and doubts in the hearts of the believers. So to save our good deeds from being destroyed, we definitely need to seek Allah's protection from shaitan. Let's take an example of salah. Salah is something that makes person closer to Allah, but it becomes the very area of shaitan's operation, and he puts all those lurking fears, those temptations and doubts in the mind of the person. Even before we start, or we are into our prayers, our minds starts wandering around and eventually making that whole prayer null and void. Therefore, it's very important that we seek Allah's protection before we start all of these amal, like before we start everything in our life. It 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 has to be performed in its truest sense, and only then we can get the protection from shaitan. But a point comes where we think, is mere utterance of isti'adha sufficient? To answer this, first we have to understand our enemy, Mr. Shaitan, very closely, and be aware of all the ways Shaitan presents himself to us. We should understand that he is a master of deceit and a powerful enemy, and we should not be complacent and unmindful of him. Taking him lightly will actually cause him to overpower us and eventually submit ourselves to our desires. So, like, Sayyid in the book actually narrates an incident which I want to share here. It's from Isfahan. A person was in his deathbed, and people around him started asking the dying person to recite talqeen. So the dying person says, La ilaha illallah. From the corner of the room, a sound came, Sadaqat abdi. That means like my creature, my abd says the truth. The sick man then says, Ya Allah. The reply comes again, Labbaik ya abdi. Oh my worshipper, I'm here. Someone in the room asks, like, whose voice is this? Then the same response comes, I'm the one whom this person has worshipped his entire life. I am the shaitan. Yes, it is a fact that man has worshipped shaitan the entire life. He is always responding to the call of shaitan. His tongue spoke at shaitan's order. His eyes saw things in response to shaitan's wishes. His heart responded to shaitan's wishes. So when throughout his life, when the person is at beck and call of shaitan, then at the time of talqeen, whether he says Ya Allah or Ya Rab, his only respondent can be shaitan. Therefore, it is important that not only we should seek protection against shaitan through our dua or isti'adha, we should also seek protection through our actions in our life. This concludes my presentation for this chapter. Inshallah, in the next session, we will be taking a deeper look into this topic. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us protection from shaitan and keep us on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.